Hey guys, Mr. T here. This is another video. This one is on graphing exponential functions. So one of the important things you're going to have to be able to do, just like we had to draw linear functions, you're going to have to be able to draw exponential functions. Luckily for us, they're all pretty much the same shape, and there's a few rules that you can follow that will help you draw them. So, like we said, we're looking at exponential functions with this form: y is equal to something times by something else to the power of x, and where a and b are going to be greater than 0. Exponential functions in this form, like I just said before, have some useful properties which let us draw them easily on a Cartesian plane. Hopefully they're as easy for me to draw with an Apple Pencil as I said it should be. Unfortunately the pencil's pretty slippery, so we'll see how we go. So for any function where y is equal to a times by b to the power of x, like we've seen before, when x is equal to 0, you're saying b to the power of 0, and anything to the power of 0 is 1. So when x is going to be 0, it's going to be 1 times by whatever a is, so it'll be the same number. So the y-intercept is always going to be whatever a is. The other thing to note for exponential functions, the graph is asymptotic. So if you haven't done methods level maths before and you don't know what asymptotic means, it just means that it never touches the x-axis. It forms a curve that gets closer and closer to the x-axis but never meets it. So if I drew a curve here and I said it's an asymptotic to the x-axis, it never meets the x-axis. It might curve like this and get closer and closer and closer, but never meets it. Okay, so all our exponential functions will be like that. They never meet the x-axis, so that helps us draw it. The other thing to note is b in the function controls the steepness of the curve, so this number here. If b is larger than 1, so 1.1 all the way to infinity, the graph curves up and to the right. So in that case, the graph goes like that. Alright? If b is between 0 and 1, however, the graph curves up and to the left. So in that case, when b is between 0 and 1 instead, it actually curves up like that. So that's another way to help you out drawing this graph if you're not familiar with exponential functions. Okay, so overall you need 4 things to draw an exponential graph with the form y is equal to a times by b to the power of x. 1, remember the curve comes close but never touches the x-axis. 2, find the y-intercept. Y when x is equal to 0, which tells you where to cross the y-axis with the graph, so that will give you one starting point. And then these last 2 points here are asking you just substitute of 2 separate values. Okay, substitute a positive value of x to get 1 point on the curve, substitute a negative value of x for another point on the curve. This gives you 3 points and the understanding that the graph never touches the x-axis, and you should be able to draw the graph. So if I grabbed an example here, so write an example. Sketch y is equal to 2 times by a third x. So a little tricky one there. I need to get my grid. So I try and keep those tips up there. I get my grid. Grid's there. Alright, so first step was, remember the curve comes close but never touches the x-axis. Alright, we don't need to do any calculations for that. Find the y-intercept. So y when x is equal to 0. So that's first step. The second step will be when x is equal to 0, 2 times by a third power of 0. But we've already said anything to the power of 0 is going to be 1 times by a here is going to be 2. So we know it's going to cross the y-axis, y-int, at positive 2. I'm going to substitute some values now. So substitute a positive value. Let's try when y is equal to 2. So it's going to be 2 times by a third to the power of 2. Now you need to remember your index rules. 2 times by 1/3 squared means 1/3 times by 1/3. So it's going to be 1/3 times by 1/3. 2 times by 1 times by 1 is 1. So the way you times out fractions is the top line times by the top line, bottom times by the bottom. 3 times by 3, 9. So it's going to be 2/9. What decimal is that? 2 divided by 9. 0.2 recurring. Substitute a negative point this time, because we need more than 1 point to decide on the shape of this graph. Let's write -2. 2 times by a third to the -2 equals the reciprocal of a third, which is 3 squared. So it's going to be 2 times by 3 squared is 9. It's going to be 18. So that's what y is when x is equal to -2. So now we have all the information required to draw this graph. So I'm going to do an x-axis here. Bit wobbly, but it's okay. Y-axis here. So we might go 2 blocks each step in the x direction. But because we need such a high y value for our -2 point, we'll need to go up in 2, sorry. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. I won't number the bottoms. So when y was equal to 0, when x was equal to 0, the y-intercept was at 2. When x was equal to 2, y was 0.2, so just above the x-axis. And when y was equal to -2, when x was equal to -2, y was 18. So that's there. So now draw the curve. Using those guidelines, you've got 2 points. You've got the y-intercept, and you've got the fact that it's never going to meet the x-axis. So one way you could start is from the point closest to the x-axis and make sure draw it out so it never meets the x-axis. I should have probably drawn it getting closer and closer, but the pen's very slippery, so it should be getting closer and closer to the x-axis, never meets it. Then I can join those two, and then lastly just curve it up towards the last point. Okay, so that is the exponential function y equals 2 times by a third x. So that's how you should label the graph. And so hopefully you can see that some of those notes that we took before come true. If b is between 0 and 1, b in this case was a third, so that's between 0 and 1. The graph curves up and to the left. What do we have here? A graph curving up and to the left that way, okay? So hopefully that helps you out with an example as to drawing exponential graph using just a few guidelines, and see you on the next video.